Yo, and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji, with me is Tom. How you doing, boy?
Yeah, really good, thanks, mate. Very happy to be here. Excited to talk about the mighty Eagles.
Ah, yes, the mighty Eagles. So glad that you were able to take time out of your schedule to talk to us about everything Crystal Palace. Listen, I really want to go visit your club, visit your team.
Yeah.
You guys have probably one of the best fan bases in the EPL. Like, regardless of win, lose, sun, rain, you are always boisterous and it's always a vibe.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think you get a little bit of that on TV if you watch some of our games, but it's only when you're really at the ground you can really soak up the atmosphere. It is pretty insane. Like you say, even if we're losing, everyone's still going full throttle. The stadium's rocking. It's just a great place to be. And I think because we've had quite a lot of turbulent times, to now have a really good spell in the Premier League and be picking up good results, attracting good transfers and all the rest of it, everyone's loving it. So yeah, it's great.
Do you happen to know the name of the guy that constantly beats that drum?
No, I don't. He should be famous. Everyone should know who he is, but no, I don't know who he is.
All right. So let's kick things off with a fan introduction. So tell us your name, your Twitter handle, the club that you're obviously representing tonight, where you're from, a little bit about yourself, what do you do, and why Crystal Palace?
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously name's Tom. I'm from South London originally. I now live in a village down in Kent, so a little bit more outside of London. Reason for supporting Crystal Palace, interesting story. When I was probably about 6, my dad took me to a Chelsea game. He's a Chelsea fan, and a Palace game because my mum's a Palace fan. And for some reason at 6, I decided Palace were the team for me. Obviously, if I'd gone down the Chelsea route, more silverware and all the rest of it. But very happy with the choice of being a Palace fan. What else? So yeah, my day life and everything else. I work in marketing for a tech startup, which is really cool. Keeps me on my toes. Something else that keeps me on my toes is my 2-year-old. I've got a 2-year-old little girl.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. And then another one on the way due in October. So
even more congratulations.
So how much football I'll get to watch come October, I don't know. But fan Trax is a good way to keep you involved, isn't it?
Definitely. It gives you a better appreciation of what is going on in the game. It's not just goals and assists, right?
That's
it gives you a better breakdown, I want to say. What's your Twitter handle, by the way, for listeners that want to maybe talk to you about everything Crystal Palace?
Yeah, so it's Tels, so TELS UK 7. I recently changed it because I realised it was my full name, so I thought, let's dial it back a bit, keep a bit more privacy there. But yeah, that's my handle if anyone wants to reach out.
Brilliant. So I guess towards the end of last season, at home, it would have been a bit spicy, right? With that semi-final, Crystal Palace versus Chelsea.
Yeah.
How did that go?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things that as you get older, you start to mellow a little bit more around football. So my dad, he's got a soft spot for Palace as well. So he kind of came into it. If you win, great. If we win, great. But obviously, I was gutted that we didn't win. But no, I think that was a good sort of end to the season for us. Obviously, getting to the final would have been brilliant. But I think it kind of helped welcome Vieira in and really summarise how everyone was feeling about Palace. This very sort of positive end that we kind of had that good cup run.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's now break it down as to how we're going to run this episode, listeners. So general discussion, we're going to find out the impact of new manager / ownership. So obviously, we're going to kind of more touch on Vieira, your club's previous season performance and the new season expectations, some of the old assets that would have left, the new assets that are coming in, expected formation, starting 11, the impact of 5 subs, and that fucking World Cup. What a pain in the ass that is. Obviously, we're going to talk about fan tracks, right? Get some drafted advice from Tom. See what the first pick is from Crystal Palace, his next 3 picks, and at least a few hidden gems. And then we'll round things off with trading assets. We look at maybe if he trades based on form, fixtures, 2v1 trades, whatever his secret sauce is. All right, let's get started. So, Vieira, success?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think you'd be hard done by to try and find a fan that isn't pleased with Vieira. It's always when you get a new manager, especially one that's kind of a little bit unproven like Vieira, it's kind of a be careful what you wish for type scenario. We had it once before with De Boer when we got him in. Everyone was really excited about a foreign manager, going to play some attractive football, and look how that started.
That was dreadful.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
And then obviously we had a lot of stability under Hodgson for all those years, and I think younger Palace fans probably started to get a lot more sort of bored of him quicker than maybe the older generation who have seen the tougher years. So so when you get Vieira in, obviously there's a little bit of that element of nervousness around what's going to happen. Are we going to be stable? But actually what he's done is completely transform how we play. We're an exciting team to watch now. We've kind of moved on from the days of pumping it long from the back four, hoping Zaha, Balassi, people like that can get on the end of it and make something happen. So I think everyone loves him. It's going to be really interesting to see where like season 2 takes us. And I think for me, so I love defending. I'm a defender, amateur defender by trade when I play football. And I think what we've done the most, one of the biggest changes for me is the fact that we now play the ball out from the back. So we keep a lot more possession. It's a lot less panicky. It's just a nice, refreshing take, really, to see Palace play in a way that's more attractive than sit back and hope we can nick a 1-0 win or get a draw. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And what are your thoughts, I guess, quickly about Steve Parish? Are you happy with how things have been run at the club so far?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any criticism we could put out there. He's put a lot of money into our youth system. We've got one of the best youth academies historically anyway, but now we've got the facilities to really back that up. So they've spent a lot of money there. The stadium, I know they've been doing a lot of work to try and regenerate the stadium as well, and that's hit a few blockers here and there, which has been frustrating. But then aside from the sort of the infrastructure, the money that's been put into the club has been brilliant. So we've seen a lot of big names come in over the last few years to first of all keep us up. The likes of Benteke, who obviously maybe fallen out of favour a little bit now. That was a lot of money back then that we threw to get him in. And then more recently, a lot of money's been put into sort of the youth system in terms of younger players that we're bringing in from the Championship, your Elises, Ezes and so on. So I think as an owner, he's not just taking money out of the club, he's putting a lot back into it, and sensibly, which I think a lot of fans quite like to see.
Love it. One thing I gotta say, so obviously we are a audio only podcast, right? But I've got to comment on your wonderful kit, Tom, that you're wearing. Is that a 1989 kit?
It's the Fly Virgin. 1990 from the FA Cup final. Back in the days when there's 2 legs to an FA Cup final, which unfortunately we didn't come out on top of. Love myself a retro kit. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now let's quickly jump into, I guess, the previous season performance, right? So Crystal Palace finished 12th, got to the semi-final of a cup. And would you consider that a success? Because I feel like at one point you guys were looking to easily finish top 10.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where the table almost sort of flatters to deceive, in that we feel like we played a lot better than maybe the 12th place finish suggests. A lot of neutrals or maybe rival fans kind of compare Vieira's season to Roy's season, in that last year I think we only got 4 more points versus Roy's last season. But the fact that the level of football was so much better, as fans, it felt like it was a way better overall season than the previous under Hodgson. So yes, I think a top 10 finish would have been great, but I think if we look at the overall picture, so we lost 6 less games last season as well, so the kind of the positivity feeling was there much more than it was in previous years, where we would lose a lot more games and kind of hopefully pick up those wins to keep us up, whereas last season there was a lot more balance around the wins and draws versus the losses, which I think was really nice. And then, like I mentioned before, it's just the standard of football was so much better that although we'd finished 12th and not side in that top 10, I think every fan is just excited to see where we're going to go, not focus too much on that 12th place finish. So yeah, last year was a success. And when we look at some of the injuries we had as well, Eze, one of our key players in the previous year, we didn't really have him until right near the end, and even then it was a bit part. Players like Elise, we're still bedding him in. So I think everyone for last season is more so focused on what 2022-23 looks like. Last year was much of a sort of a stepping stone, adding those building blocks for the future.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys looked so solid at the back at times, which I want to say wasn't a common thing with Crystal Palace, maybe. I mean, you guys kind of used to scrap out games, but I believe you guys had the seventh best defense in the league last season, only conceding 46 goals, right? And I mean, you didn't score that many, maybe I think it was 50 goals, and that would have sat around mid-table, let's say. But still, like overall, a decent performance. So now moving forward, though, what are you really expecting from Crystal Palace? Like a similar performance, or you guys think you can kick on from there?
Yeah, I really think we do need to see a good level of sort of kicking on from last season. So we talked about the top 10 finish, and I don't think it would be outrageous to suggest that we should be shooting for that top 10. Obviously, a biased take is I'd love us to be flirting with those sort of European spots in one way or another. Whether or not we've quite got what we need to get in that sort of top 6, 7, I don't know yet. I think maybe we need to see a couple more transfers maybe coming in. Obviously, we lost players like Gallagher, and we need someone that's going to come in and replace that sort of creative element from centre midfield that's a real sort of box-to-box type player. So, yeah, for this year, I'd like us to see solidly inside the top 10, flirting with the Europa League, and then another good cup run I think would be good. It's been a long old time since we've had any silverware, so whether or not it's the FA Cup or the League Cup that we maybe pick up. But a couple of really good cup runs and a top 10 finish is definitely the target this year.
Okay, brilliant. So now that you've kind of touched upon Gallagher, him obviously coming back home to Chelsea. I'm actually a Chelsea fan.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you're going to change your attitude towards me for the rest of this podcast. But he was basically your top Fantrax scorer, right?
Yeah.
Last season. I think he finished around 347 points regular scoring. Obviously taking out that impact. Granted, I want to say majority of those points came in the first half of the season as well, because there was a serious drop-off in terms of his, I don't want to say performance, but basically what he was contributing in terms of Fantrax points, right? Because he was still running around like a madman, like helping out and stuff like that. But from an attacking perspective, maybe he kind of lost some of his mojo. But I mean, let's kind of take a look at some of the transfers out that happened this summer, and you can kind of quickly just say, okay, it's been a big loss, discuss why it was a big loss. But if they're a youth player and there's no sort of Fantrax relevance, then let's just kind of move forward, right? So Martin Kelly.
Yeah, to be honest with you, very much a rotation player. Zero Fantrax relevance, I think, when he was with us. Great guy, but yeah, nothing for anyone to worry about or think about there.
Okay, and I feel like a long list of this names that I don't even recognize and could be youth players, but Jaroslaw Jacques or Luke Dreher.
Yeah, so the first guy you mentioned is a bit of a funny story among Palace fans. So we signed him, semi-big deal made on social media, never made an appearance. I think he played for the under-20s team a few times, but both him, definitely not. Dreher was a youth prospect, I think, never quite made it through. But again, Fantrax relevance, zero.
Okay, Rian Jamai.
Sounds bad. I'm not too sure.
It's all right.
Yeah, probably another youth player. Yeah.
Yeah. Kanye Jobson or Nia Kirby?
Yeah, so first guy, afraid not too sure who that is. Probably again a youth player. Kirby, again, another youth player that people were quite excited about. That's the thing, because we're in such a hotbed of talent in South London. There's a lot of these players that come through the youth academies that have really kind of got that flair and maybe catch the eye, but maybe don't quite make it for Premier League sort of level. So yeah, no Fantrax relevance, but I'll be excited to see what he does.
Okay, Joseph Ling or Sean Robertson?
Copy and paste, I'm afraid. Yeah, not too sure. Youth guys there.
All right, Aiden Steele or James Taylor?
Same again, yeah.
Okay, Dylan Thistleton?
Yeah, not too sure. Another youth guy.
Okay, all right. We'll quickly move on. Reese Hannum and rounding things off with Remy Matthews.
Both of those guys, again, youth prospects. So again, like to see what happens with them in the future. But yeah, nothing for Fantrax managers to think about.
Okay, so now let's kind of quickly move on to the ins then. I'm going to jump back as far as January 2022 because I think he's an asset that a lot of people keep picking up in the drafts these days. Jean-Philippe Mateta.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, our striker situation is a frustrating one. Because we've got Mateta, we've got Edouard, and we've got Benteke. To some extent, Zaha as well kind of comes into that conversation. But as the out-and-out number 9, as a Fantrax player, I very much consider all of them streamers. I think on their day, they've got the potential to score very well, especially when we look at aerials for Benteke and for Mateta. But as an owner, they're not players I'd consider drafting. Maybe your last round if you're trying to scrape the barrel for somebody, but I think they're very much rotation, sort of streamer players week to week, depending on matchups.
Okay, I mean, out of those three, who would you rather have start in real life, and who would you rather have as a Fantrax asset?
Yeah, good question. I think real life, I want to see more of Edouard. He did so well up in Scotland, was just absolutely on fire. And I know that's the Farmers League, quote unquote. Sorry for any Scottish fans out there. But I'd like to see more of him, really, because I think we've seen flashes of what he can do, but he just hasn't had a consistent run in the team. So I would really like to see more of Edouard in real life. In terms of Fantrax, if I know they're starting, weirdly enough, probably Benteke. I think he's just got enough. He's got enough credit in the bank with Fantrax managers that even if Palace lose, there's a good chance Benteke could get you 16 points for nothing. So
for doing nothing.
Yeah,
just heading the ball.
Yeah. So if I have to pick one up on an off day, it'd probably be Benteke.
Okay, brilliant. So let's move on to the summer transfers now. Malcolm Ebiowe. Am I butchering that? Coming in from Derby.
Ebowe, yeah. I think hopefully I've not butchered it either. So I think everyone's quite excited about him. He kind of follows the Elise Eze mould of youth prospects coming out of the Championship. Had a really good season with Derby last year, and he's actually played in our tour in Singapore and Australia. He had a couple of appearances out there, and there's a clip, I don't know if you saw it, if not I'll have to send it to you, where it was against Manchester United. He's coming down the wing, does a lovely turn and drops Fred and another defender straight on the ground with
we've got to retweet that.
With this cut back, and gets a nice shot on target. So 2 Fantrax points there for the shot on target as well. So I think he's someone I was going to mention him later, but he could be a bit of a wild card asset. So I wouldn't say he's draftable. But if you see him in a starting lineup, he's someone I'd be thinking about picking up if the matchup's favourable.
Love it. I mean, before we continue with our names, it's funny that you mentioned that, when you watch the games, you think of the Fantrax points immediately. Having played Fantrax now, how many years has it been that you've been playing Fantrax or Toga?
I think 4, maybe going into 5, yeah.
Okay. So, does that happen to you now that you watch any game and it immediatly converts,
all the time.
Fantrax points, right?
It could be something completely irrelevant and you're watching the Monday night game and someone wins a header and you're like, yes, that's it. I'm going to win my matchup because of that. So, you celebrate the most stupid stuff, don't you?
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Sam Johnston coming in for free. I assume this is a backup?
Yeah, that's it. I think that's a good pickup that we've got there. He's a solid keeper. I think he's had some England caps, but good Premier League experience. So, a great backup to Gaeta, who's not getting any younger. I imagine he's going to be used in cup competitions, or if Gaeta picks up a knock. Because Butland, who was on number 2, he actually got injured in pre-season. He's going to be out for a while. So, Johnson, good backup player.
Okay, brilliant. Cheek Doucouré.
Yeah, he's somebody we're all quite excited about. So, one of those transfers where I've never seen him play, but as soon as you're linked with him, you get excited about a new player coming to your club. But we bought him in from the French league, very much a box-to-box style midfielder. I couldn't say whether or not he's going to be a big Fantrax asset. I think from what I've read and seen, he looks kind of like a Ndidi, Declan Rice, Kante style player where I wouldn't expect a lot of goals, assists, just a really good, solid midfield sort of 8, box-to-box style player, yeah.
Okay, and rounding things off with Cormac Austin.
That one's passed me by.
Okay.
So
probably a youth player.
Yeah,
right?
I imagine so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, he necessarily isn't a new signing, but I feel like coming back from injury, he stays fit. Ebericha Eze, we talked about him. It's got to be a big boost, right? But the thing is, which position is he going to play? Because I've seen him play as part of the front 3, and I think that kills his value.
Yep.
And I feel like he works a lot better as a number 8.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I'd like to see him in that sort of number 10 role where he's got lots of freedom, not so much sort of tasked around tracking back necessarily or defensive work. He really is the person that can link up our
Yeah.
midfield to the front three really well.
Yeah.
And he carries
Yeah.
the ball so well as well. So
So well. Yeah.
we're all very excited and hoping we're going to see a full season out of him. I know he's had some good preseason minutes, but yeah, so much potential with Eze.
Yeah, because I mean, I want to say in the 2021 season is when he kind of played that more deeper role, feeding the front three. He was scoring around 8.7 points per game, right?
Yep.
And in the most recent season, where he had that sort of mixture of positions, he was only scoring 5.3 points per game, right? So I think maybe depending on how you see the lineups come out, then you can kind of judge his value moving forward, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think this is obviously fan bias, but for me, if he's starting, I'm playing him, unless it's against maybe one of the top four. Purely because if you go back to the season you mentioned where he's kind of good scoring year, that was we were still under Roy then. We weren't as an attacking team.
Yeah, true.
Now we're much more front foot style team. So I'd hope that if he gets consistent starts, we should see him creeping up to that sort of 10 points per start sort of area. But like you say, much better in the number 10 versus out wide in a front three.
Yeah, I mean, listen, even towards the latter end of the season, I think in the games between April 25th and May 19th, he was scoring 9, 15, 7.5, 9, 14. You take that, right? There's only 2 attacking returns in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's loads of ghost points with Eze. It's not just like you say, assist goals. He's the pass before the pass so often, which adds up those key passes so quickly. And when he takes players on, he rarely loses it. He's surprisingly strong for his size.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I love him. I'll be looking to pick him up in drafts where I can. Hopefully, not reaching too early.
Okay, brilliant. Let's now talk about, I guess, the expected formation and starting 11. What are we looking at right now?
Yeah, so we predominantly played 4-3-3 last year. I think we're probably going to go that way again. There's some links with a centre back who I think we pretty much have signed, Richards from Bayern Munich, who the kind of theory goes that if we sign him, we might move to a 3 at the back formation with wing backs. I still think we're light on maybe a right wing back to make that one fully work. So I think 4-3-3 is what we're most likely to see, and I think it'll obviously be Gaeta in goal, Mitchell at left back, Anderson and Gahey centre halves, Klein most likely as our right back. Then in the midfield 3, as we kind of touched upon, I'd like to see Eze in there as the more sort of attacking minded out of the 3. Then Doucouré, who's going to be much more of a holding player. The third position, I think there's still a bit of a question mark over. I think it could be MacArthur. He's got injured.
The man that never dies.
I know.
He refuses to die.
I know. A big fan favourite, just so undervalued, I think. He's not a fantasy asset, don't get me wrong, but just so undervalued. He's such a worker.
And he puts up the points.
He does.
The ghost points as well, right?
Yeah, he does. He doesn't get on the score sheet that often on many assists, but because, like you say, he's a worker, he's everywhere. He's bound to pick up some points here and there. And then I think Will Hughes could see some rotation between him and Will Hughes for that third spot. I think that's maybe where we're at our weakest. We maybe need one more centre midfielder to help bolster that area. Obviously, we had Gallagher last year, so someone that can kind of fill that role. And then the front 3, I think we're most likely to start with Zaha on the left, Mateta through the middle, and then if he's fit, Elise on the right-hand side. There's some question marks there, which is a bit worrying.
Yeah, Elise is another asset that I'm excited to hear what you're going to say about moving forward in this episode, because he's got bags of talent, right?
Awesome.
Even on dead ball situations, he offers a lot of threat, I want to say. And in terms of that midfield position, almost like that number 10, even before Gallagher, you guys had Ruben Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea, and it seems that you guys have a knack for picking fantastic on loan players, right? So I'm quite excited if you guys are going to bring in anyone else to feed that front 3.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. Like it's a gap I wish we had more of a permanent solution for.
For sure. Yeah.
I think Doucouré is going to be one that's interesting for us. If he actually is more attacking minded than we're led to believe, then he could be that new link. I'm not too sure. But yeah, the transfer rumours have gone a little bit quiet since we bought in Doucouré. As I mentioned, we've got a defender potentially from Bayern Munich. Dwight McNeil's been linked with us recently, which I would actually quite like to see as well. We know, again, he's a good fan trust asset, done very well for Burnley in the past. So he could maybe be that missing piece. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I think that's how we'll set up to start the year.
Okay, brilliant. Now let's quickly talk about how the five subs are going to impact you guys and who do you have going off to the World Cup. So, I mean, there's always a split, I want to say, vote on this five sub stuff, right? It's kind of benefits the big clubs, not really the smaller clubs. Where do you think you guys kind of fall on this?
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth a little bit there. I think for us, I don't think it's necessarily going to help us. I just don't think we've got the squad depth really to make good use of it. There's a lot. I love our squad, but there's also a lot of players that are on the bench that if they come on, you're not overly excited. They're going to change the game all that much. It's more so for the fresh legs. So I think really, like you said, it's the sort of thing that's going to help those bigger sides. So when we're playing against those sort of top 5, top 6 teams, that's when you start to get worried when they're bringing the talent they've got on their bench onto the pitch, and we haven't maybe got the opportunity to do the same. So yeah, it's almost an irrelevance, I'd say, to Palace. It's not going to help us too much.
What about players that are going off to the World Cup? Are there any assets that we need to be worried about drafting from Crystal Palace?
I think for us, there's a lot more question marks around will they make the squad type players. So for Zaha, they didn't qualify for the World Cup, so he's our main Trax player, really. So you don't have to worry about him. We talked about Elise. I mean, I'd be surprised if he makes the French squad for the World Cup. He's still quite much in their youth setup.
Yeah, and they've got bags of talent to exploit.
they don't need to rush bringing him in, do they? So really, I think it's more so around question marks around people like Mitchell and Gahey, if they can maybe squeeze into the England squad. I'm not too sure they will. I think especially when you look at the left back spot, you got people like Chilwell, who's now coming back from injury. Shaw's going to have a good year with the transfers United have brought in, so he's going to be playing well, you'd think. So, yeah, I don't think for Palace there's many players you need to be concerned about coming back with injuries that might be in your Trax team. Richards, if we do get him from Bayern, he will be in the USA team, I imagine.
Okay.
But again, how Trax relevant that is, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to fan favorite segment, draft advice. So if you fast forward everything else that we've talked about, fuck you, because you've missed a hell of a good conversation. But yeah, let's jump to like the assets and stuff like that. Who's your first pick? It has to be obvious.
Yeah, it has to be Wilf.
Yeah.
And it's funny actually when I was getting ready for talking to you today. I was obviously doing some final checks on things, and there's a new rumor that's come out. You might have seen it as well, that Zaha might be being linked with Chelsea.
Oh no way!
I mean, it wouldn't be a transfer window if there wasn't a link for Wilf to go somewhere anyway.
Yeah.
I think it kind of makes sense for Chelsea. I don't want to see it happen. Don't get me wrong, but I could see why it could happen. He's only got a year left on his contract as well, so if the right thing came in, I'm sure we'd be thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's more so. It's not that he won't fit or anything, because let's be honest, Timo Werner hasn't fucking done anything for us, right? I'm pretty sure he's gonna go off and play somewhere else. Just not only to change the landscape, but get more playing time, especially with the World Cup right around the corner. A lot of players are chasing playing time right now. So the other issue is that where is he gonna fit in? Because everyone's kind of now talking about Mount, Havertz, and Sterling gonna be the perfect front three sort of thing. So it's up in the air. Honestly, before we kind of get anyone new, we need to sort out what the hell we're doing right now. Because the last preseason game that I watched, I'm sure fans would have heard my complaints probably one of the few episodes ago. We looked like dog shite versus Arsenal. Looked like absolutely lost. League One team giving the ball away easily. I don't know why we're playing a back four when we've got our wing backs fit. Again, you know, obviously, like, Chilwell has come back from a really serious injury, so he's going to need time to kind of be embedded back into it. But as flattering as it is to be linked to another EPL/Fantrax legend like Wilf, I think we need to fix shit in our house before we start going outside.
Fair enough. Well,
but yeah, in terms of like even Zaha being your first pick, he is. I don't think he's on any set pieces other than penalties, but I'm gonna say that he was fairly dreadful at penalties last season.
Yeah, there was one in particular where he kind of like slipped and it was just terrible. But more often than not, I actually feel quite confident when he steps up because there's a lot of conviction. He plays with anger and there's a lot of anger in his penalties when he takes those as well. But I mean, let's pretend and hope he does stay with us. And if he does,
Yeah.
he's definitely the first player you've got to take off the board from the Palace team. You know he's going to start 30, 31, 32 games, something like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Last year, 14 goals. I think that was his best season since moving in the Premiership. So
Yep.
there's a clear upward trend there. If you look at the last 3 years, I think he went from like 8 points a game to 10 last season. So there's value to be had with Zaha if you get him at the right place in the draft. The thing you have to be aware of and like not get too quick to cut him or try and trade him out. You're going to get a few 1 point games from him here and there. There's going to be games where he might get a red card even. We know he's got that in him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, if you can get him in the sort of early fourth, I think you've done well there. He's not a bad forward 1/forward 2, I'd say. Bit of bias maybe.
Yeah, and listen, if your league plays with fouls suffered, you're gonna get a lot of points because everyone loves to kick Wilf down.
They do.
Okay, let's talk about the next 3 picks.
Yeah, for sure. So we've kind of talked about them a little bit already, but Elise would be the next player I'd like to take. There's a question mark around his fitness at the moment, so that's something I think, depending on when you're drafting, to keep an eye on, because there's no real news that's come out on that. But injuries aside, he's our set piece taker, so free kicks, most corners, he's taking those, so you're picking up points for fun there. His delivery is insane, whether or not it's a dead ball or running with it. He loves to take defenders on. So there's just ghost points all over the place. If you take away the assists and goals, you know he's going to score pretty well for you. And I think looking at sort of the ADP, he's actually kind of undervalued at the moment. He's going around sort of 73, 75, around that sort of area. And if you consider the players being taken before him, so you've got players like Richarlison, how many games is he going to start? Perisic, which I love the excitement around Perisic. I hope it actually transpires. But again, how much is he going to play? McGinn, solid player, don't get me wrong, but has he got that upside that Elise has to offer? So I think if you're in drafts and you see him sitting around beyond round 5, 6, you've got to snap him up because there's so much potential with Elise.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
He can score, like, I think he managed to get a couple of games where he got like 17 to 18 points, but I think given like, you know, now it's finally full season, maybe he can pass that 20-point mark, right? I think there's definitely a very dangerous player in there.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. And again, it's just last year he didn't get those consistent starts. So if we see him playing all the time, I think that's going to be a kind of a set and forget type player.
For sure.
So yeah, I think that's the thing. And the frustrating thing almost with Elise is there was a lot of times last year where he came off the bench with 15 or 20 minutes to go and came away with 25 points or something sitting on your bench, which is like, why couldn't you start him? But the joys of it.
For sure. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the next pick?
Yeah, so Eze would be next pick. And I actually don't think there's all that much between him and Elise, to be honest with you. If they're both starting and you've only got one spot on your starting lineup, it will be a tough shout. Again, with Eze, he's going to be sharing those set pieces with Elise. I think before Elise joined, Eze was on free kicks, he was on corners, and his delivery is fantastic as well. So everything I've said about Elise is pretty much a copy paste for Eze. He just loves taking players on. Like I said before, he's a strong player, rarely loses the ball. And again, his draft position is actually quite low in my opinion. So he's going around sort of 94 on average, which if I do more comparisons, sorry if these are on your team, but you've got Smith Rowe. How many starts is he going to get? Great player when he does play, but consistency. Gallagher, who obviously I've got a love for, but again, how much time is he going to get? And then Edison, so keepers, so people that are taking keepers that early, it blows my mind. But
don't get me started.
But again, if Eze's sitting there and you're going into round 7, 8, I'd be thinking about taking him depending on who you've got in your roster already. But yeah, and a lot of potential there.
For sure. What about your final of the 3?
Yeah, so I think this is a bit of a cop-out, but I'd say almost our back 4 are players you can think about picking up late. So again, if you need a set and forget defender that you don't expect the world from, but you hope to get between that sort of 6 to 10 point mark most weeks, I think you can't go too much wrong with looking at players like Anderson, Gay, Mitchell. Gay's got more of a goal threat than the others, probably. He scored a few goals from corners last year. He's so good in the air. Anderson, his range of passing is superb. So you could be picking up the odd assist where he does one of his 30, 40-yard crossfield balls. And then we know Mitchell likes to take players on. He's not a bad player at kind of overlapping and getting the balls in from there as well. So they're not players that you need to be rushing out the front door for. But those later rounds, if you need a set and forget defender, you could go worse than picking one of those guys up.
Yeah, completely agree. Listen, Anderson, 20 key passes alone,
Yep.
4 assists. Like, that's pretty fucking impressive
Yeah.
for a centre back.
Yeah, they're good numbers.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's now move on to your hidden gem. Do you have 1 or 2?
So I've got 2, well, 1.5.
Yeah.
So I touched on Iboye earlier.
Yeah.
I think he's a player that, like I said, you can stream if the matchup's right, and you need that spot. He's somebody that I'll probably be picking up fairly early, depending on how my draft goes, as in weeks 1 to 5 in the Premier League season. If I've got someone sitting on my bench doing nothing, I'll probably pick up and hold Iboye in the hope he might get a start in that sort of first 10 weeks and shows what he can do. If he's sitting in the waiver wire in your league, I'd pick him up if he's starting, again, if the matchup's right. So yeah, someone to keep an eye on. Very much of that Elise and Eze mould. And then the other guy that I'd keep an eye on is Doucouré, mainly because we don't really know what he's going to offer or what he's going to do in a fan track sense. So again, if the first few weeks you see he's a consistent sort of ghost pointer or shows more attacking intent, I'd keep an eye on him and look at maybe picking him up.
Okay, brilliant. So there's one name I kind of want to discuss before we move on to our final segment. Jeffrey Schlupp. Now, this guy has a knack of popping in and out of the squad. And when he does, he tends to get you some decent points, like even a goal here, an assist there. Like, should we be looking at him at all, or is he still just going to be another squad player for the season?
He could fall within that Hughes MacArthur area that I talked about earlier, where there's a bit of a question mark on that third spot in midfield. I don't think he's ever going to set the world alight, so don't start him hoping he's going to win your matchup. But like you said, there were a few times last year, and I actually streamed him, and it came off beautifully, where he scored a goal or got an assist. So he does have that in him. He is attacking minded more so than defensive. So if you need a player, Palace are playing on a Monday or late on a Sunday, and he's starting, why not? But don't be surprised if you get a 3-point stinker and a yellow card or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so now before we move on again to trading assets, do you have any final points that you want to mention? Anything that you didn't get a chance to?
I would just say something about our league that we do that's a little bit different that other leagues may do already. We do a lot of side bet action in our league.
Okay.
So we do lots of fun, stupid things. So they could be pint video related. So you've got to send something into the WhatsApp group, or someone last year had to do their food shopping cross-dressed as a woman, make up and film it. Someone had to do a pint in a tuxedo in the bath and then do press up afterwards. So it's just stuff to like make your WhatsApp group and your league more engaged.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be around drinking or whatever like that, but we do loads of stuff like that, and it is quite good fun, and it adds an extra bit of spice to your matchup. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to put out a tweet and find out what listeners do as, their trophies or their I guess call it El Saco moments, coming last in your league or whatever, the punishment. Have you had to do anything embarrassing, Tom?
So last season we had a thing where bottom of the league and the person that got nominated the least amount of pints, so like pint videos. I didn't finish bottom, but I got nominated the least. We had to go to Trafalgar Square, drop our shorts, do a pint video and send it into the WhatsApp group in the middle of the day on a Saturday. So we did that. It sounded a lot worse than it was, but we always do stupid stuff like that for the bottom of the league as well. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Love to hear that. Okay, so let's move on to trading assets. So Tom, are you big into trading? Do you look at form? Do you look at fixtures? Do you do 2-for-1 trades? What's your secret sauce?
I absolutely love trading, and I think a lot of the guys in my league think I'm a bit of a bandit. I send out a lot of trade offers. I try my luck quite often with trying to obviously come off on top, which you should do when you're trying to get a trade. I think 2-for-1s are a good way to go, especially if you're trying to get a real good upgrade in there. If you can get 2 players out there that someone's going to be interested in versus their one. Why not? But I think you should also play on and pull on the heartstrings of the person you're trying to trade with.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're a Chelsea fan. If I know you like Chelsea assets and I've got one that's maybe below the person I want off you, obviously I'm going to throw that out there first of all, because
Yeah.
you might snap that up to get your guy. And people will know if I don't get Zaha in our draft, there will be lots of trades coming my way to try and give me
For
Zaha
sure.
for someone much
Yeah.
better. So I think,
Yeah.
main thing for me, pull on the heartstrings, try your luck first of all. What's the worst that can happen? And just
Yeah.
keep open-minded with negotiations as well. Like if you get rejected first of all, go back and see what you can do to try and tweak it to get it over the line.
100%. What's one of the best trades or waste trades that you've ever done?
Yeah, so last season I was second pick in the draft and I took Bruno, which on paper I thought fine, brilliant trade,
Yeah.
brilliant start. But obviously he started so badly, and I managed to trade him just 1-for-1 for Son in, I think it was,
wow.
yeah. So I think that was end of October time, and obviously the rest is history. Son was insane, won me so many matchups. So that's one of the better ones I've done. I think I've had a few in the past where I've got lucky where I traded someone and then they maybe did their ACL or something a week later and out for the season. So that's more luck. But yeah, the Son Bruno one definitely sticks in memory.
Love it. Okay. Well, I mean, that's all we had planned to talk about. That's all she wrote. Unless, again, the floor is yours. Do you have any final pieces of advice, final thoughts you want to give the listeners before we sign off?
I don't think so. I think ahead of your draft, try and listen to as much content like this. The stuff that the Banter Boys are putting out is great for helping.
Oh, thank you, man.
That's all right. I mean, I've got a few tidbits from some of them myself. So I think, listen to some content on your commutes, read a bit here and there, but don't stress out too much on draft day. What's going to happen is going to happen. And just, if anything, take players that you like. At least if you cheer them on and they're doing badly, you know you like them in real life. So it kind of eases the pain.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's funny that you talked about like not stressing out. So when I was chatting with my Fulham correspondent, he was asking, like, how's your draft prep going? I was like, what do you mean prep? He's like, oh, like, don't you know your picks and stuff beforehand? So in the leagues that I usually have been in, like my home leagues and stuff, we only decide draft order the minute before we start the draft.
Nice. That is different.
So yeah, it is different, and I think majority of people know their draft pick going into their draft, so you can kind of plan exactly, okay, I'm going to reach for this player, I think this player will fall to me. But I think the added level of chaos also throws managers off, and it makes them pick the most, I don't know, interesting choices ever, right? For players. And sometimes people kind of, like you said, kind of just default to their club, right? They're like, okay, my club's going to do well. So I'm going to grab that asset sort of thing, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if you ever get that chance, I would suggest it. The chaos can be...
I like the idea of it. I like the idea of it, yeah. I think, why not? It changes things up a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Listeners, well, thank you so much for listening in tonight's episode of Everything Crystal Palace. Tom, again, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And I think our next episode is supposed to be Leicester. I think I'm recording that in a few hours, but, I'm always lazy to release the episodes. But you know what? Until next time, we will see you then. Peace.